I'm back. Today's a Q&A. I randomly went on my Instagram page yesterday and I asked everyone on my stories to send me questions that they'd like me to answer. A lot of the questions were about love, a lot of them were about relationships, and also a few philosophy questions. I really hate long introductions, so let's just jump right into it. Our first question is, why do we fall in love with the people we fall in love with? Love this question so much. Love it. Let's discuss. So it's because the person who asked said fall in love, I'm assuming we're talking about romantic love. So why do we love the people that we love? Like, why are we attracted to the people that we're attracted to? I'm going to answer this question in two parts, the physical and then the emotional. So let's start with the physical. Why are we sexually and physically attracted to the people that we are attracted to? I've heard a lot of theories about this. There's a philosopher by the name of Schopenhauer who believes that we are sexually attracted to people because of our biological impulse to procreate, to make babies. So when you're seeing someone on the street and you see that dick print and you think he's really cute, it's not because he's objectively cute, it's because your biological drives are telling you that that person would make really good, healthy, flourishing babies with you. I don't agree with this. I actually don't agree with this because as a queer person, I'm attracted to women all the time, and it's not because I want to make babies with them. Not only that, I've never actually had an interest in having kids or babies at all. Like, I'm never going to pop a human out of this womb. Like, it's not gonna happen. So I just don't believe in that theory because it's not inclusive of like queer people. I believe that we're attracted physically and sexually to people because beauty is the promise of happiness. I don't know where I read that phrase, that quote. I don't know who it's from. I feel like I read it a billion trillion years ago. But basically, I believe that beauty is the promise of happiness, and that when we see someone and we find them stunning or we want to fuck, like, it's not because the dick print is popping, it's because you see a symmetrical face, and symmetry is a symbol of health. And of course, if you're healthy, you have a much better quality of life, so therefore you'll be happier. When you see someone with big hair, with clear skin, or with a fat ass, big thighs, whatever it is, these are all symbols of fertility, of health, that you're gonna live longer, and all of these things are symbols of happiness. They're all promises that you will have a better life if you attain them. That's my theory. You can fight me on that in the comment section below, but let me know what you think. And then there's the emotional level. Why do we fall in love with people who are soft or who are gentle? Or for some people, why do you fall in love with people who are funny? Whatever emotional traits that you fall in love with, why is that? Why do you fall in love with those people? My theory is because we learn how to love from childhood. So we take the things that we learn into adulthood, and the ways that we were loved when we were children, we seek those out when we're adults. So we're not looking for people because they're healthy for us, or because they're nice to us, or because they promise us a greater life. We fall in love with people because they feel familiar to our childhoods. It's the attachment to nostalgia. It's the longing for that childhood love. And that's why a lot of men want you to be their mothers. That's why a lot of you end up in these relationships with no reciprocity, where you are his therapist, his maid. And that's not a relationship, sis. That's slavery. But it's not your fault that you keep falling for men who demand slavery for you. It's because you were taught when you were a child that that's what love is. Especially women, we're just taught like fucked ideas about love. I'm gonna make a whole video on love. I don't know, actually. Let me know in the comment section below if you're interested in the concept of love, and we'll discuss. Anyway, I've been on this for a long time. Let's move on to the next question. Thoughts on hypergamy. So hypergamy is basically the act of a woman marrying someone richer than her. It's what we refer to nowadays as gold digging. So what are my thoughts on that? On marrying someone who is richer than you in order to level up. you know, in order to get yourself into a higher social class. Listen, my thoughts on that are that all relationships are transactional, and so while I don't engage in hypergamy, like I'm not actively seeking out men who are richer than me so that I can level up that way. Not because I don't value money, but because that's not the transaction, that's not how I want to transact in my relationships. I feel like everyone goes into relationships for a different reason, and if we're keeping it real, the purpose of marriage to begin with is to sustain family and wealth. And also from a biological or revolutionary standpoint, it makes sense that women would pursue stability, security, and comfort. And the symbol of that in modern day society is money. Women are the people who are producing babies. And if you are you're giving birth to babies, you need to be in a situation where you can provide for them. And therefore, you'd need to be with someone who can make sure that you're not going to be homeless, barefoot, and struggling. I'm not interested in getting married. I don't really plan on getting married unless there's like a practical, economic, financial reason. I am quite confident in my ability to make money and be comfortable and be rich. So I'm not looking for that in someone else because I can provide that for myself. But I know that there are women who don't want to, or who just don't have the range to provide financial stability for themselves. So they seek it out through marriage. And I'm not judging them for that. That's just what they do. We all need to be realistic about what we prioritize in our relationships and in our marriage. And we also need to be realistic about what marriage is for. Marriage is not for romance. Marriage does not sustain romance. In fact, I'd even argue that marriage is very unromantic. The idea of being with someone for the rest of your life isn't really the thing that perpetuates passion and excitement and sexual energy and eroticism. It's really more so for stability and also for the capitalism agenda, but that's another video for another day. Let's move on to the next question. I got into a rant. Do you consider mixed race or biracial people black? I'm screaming at this question. How do I answer this without being controversial? Look, I think the answer to this question is cultural. I think it depends on your geography. Personally, I don't believe that blackness is a monolith. So while I am fully black, like I'm a dark-skinned woman, I have kinky hair, I have very African features, I have a very different life experience from someone who is mixed race with looser curls and green eyes and Eurocentric features. Because if we're keeping it real, the way our skin suit is set up affects how we move through the world. And the closer you are in proximity to whiteness, the easier it is for you to navigate through life. So I'm not going to say that just because you're mixed race, you're not black. But I will say that when you are mixed race, you are not the same type of black as me. And that's not only a cultural, geographic, ethnic thing. It's also just like the ways that we're perceived and the benefits and the privileges that we do or don't have depend on your proximity to whiteness. Which isn't to say that all mixed race people are light-skinned and Eurocentric, because I'm not going to sit here and tell someone that they can or can't be black. But I'm also not going to sit here and pretend that me and Yara Shahidi experience blackness in the same way. Like, sis, why are we lying? Next question is, what are some things for you that are not allowed in your relationship? This is a good question. First thing is, you need to be securely attached. So I don't have time for people who are avoidant or people who are clingy, because I just feel like it ends up in games. So I need someone who's securely attached, because I am securely attached at this point. So that's number one. Another thing is respect. Even if we are fighting, even if we're in the middle of a really big conflict, we still need to respect each other. No one needs to call me a coon, a monkey ass nigga bitch. Like, we don't need to do any of that just because you're heated and angry in the moment. Luckily, I'm in a space where we don't do that, so it's really quite healthy. I need to be with someone who knows how to navigate and manage conflict, because conflict is a given. There's no way that you're going to be in a relationship that has no conflict. So I need to be with someone who can still be respectful in the good times, but also not the bad times. I don't expect someone to like me all the time, but I do expect you to be loving even when you don't like me, because you're not going to like your partner all the time. You're not going to like your friends all the time. But love is an action and not a feeling. So even during the hard times and even during the times when things aren't going so well, the will to still extend yourself for the other person is love. Like, that's what a loving partner does. That's not like the definition of love. I have a whole other video about what I define as love, because I feel like that's a whole 20-30 minute conversation. But yeah, to be loving and respectful even when we're in times of conflict and despair. Sulking is not allowed. Sulking is not, absolutely not allowed. Sulking is when you are mad at someone, but instead of telling them why you're mad, you sulk because you expect them to be a mind reader and know. In big 2019, at my big age, we cannot be sulking because we use our words. We need to use our words and communicate why we are mad. Love is really a process of teaching. I don't believe in the concept of compatibility. I don't think that anyone is inherently compatible with anyone. I think love is a process of negotiating your flaws and insecurities and your boundaries, but there is no one in the world that you're gonna meet who you're fully compatible with. You have to teach someone how to love you, and they have to teach you how to love them. And sulking is caused because we expect people to be mind readers, and we expect them to know what our triggers and our insecurities are. Let go of the illusion that people will and should understand you. You need to teach people. That's love is a process of teaching. Next question. At what periods in your life were you living in South Africa? Do you ever think of settling here? If yes, for how long? Okay, there's 18 billion questions in this question. Let's start with that one. At what periods in my life was I living in South Africa? If you didn't know, I am South African. I was born there, and then I moved to Belgium when I was 6. And then I moved back to, I was born in Johannesburg. Then I moved back to Pretoria when I was 13. And then I lived there in Pretoria until I was 16, at which point I moved to Switzerland. Do I plan on going back? Absolutely. I really want to live in Cape Town, even though it's really racist. But where is it not racist? Do you know what I mean? I've lived now at this point on 3 different continents. I've been to almost all the continents, and I've never been able to avoid racism. So might as well just go to where racism is manufactured. You know what I mean? Next question. How old am I? I don't believe in the concept of age. It's weird. I actually don't even celebrate my birthdays. I think I stopped celebrating my birthday when I was like 10. After that, I was like, no, I'm done. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Because I think it's very strange that we measure growth by, it's very arbitrary. Like, what is the difference between me being 24 and 26? Why do we not measure growth by like hallmarks that are significant? I would prefer to celebrate like, oh, I've gained more wisdom in this one area of life. Let's celebrate. Or, oh, our relationship has achieved this thing. Let's celebrate. But I don't understand why we celebrate age. But if someone can explain, maybe I'll have a birthday celebration. Ooh, can you be a side chick and not get hurt? Yeah, absolutely. Because pain is all perception, there's that. But also it's about expectations. If you become a side chick hoping that you're gonna be promoted to a wife, you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get your feelings hurt. You need to start the way you intend to finish. Flex taught me that in our podcast, which you should go listen to. Hold on, by side chick, are we talking about like friends with benefits, or are you talking about being the other woman? Anyway, I'm talking about friends with benefits. If you become friends with benefits with someone and you go in hoping and believing that they will upgrade you to girlfriend status, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get disappointed. If you go in just knowing that this is for funsies, this is for pleasure, I'm here to get my titty sucked, I'm here to get my nut, you'll be fine. Just have a good time. Why be attached to outcomes that you can't even control? Instead of you going into a relationship hoping someone will change, just go into a relationship with someone you already fuck with. Someone also asked the question, how do you get a guy to commit to you? The answer is that you don't. You don't get a guy to commit to you, because the alternative is that you choose to be with someone who is choosing to commit to you, not by force. There are 8 billion human beings, and you are wasting your precious youth on a man with dirty fingernails. He has halitosis, poo in between his bum cheeks, and you're trying to force him to commit to you when he's shown you that he doesn't want to. Be with someone who chooses you, not with someone that you have to force to want you. You can't force someone to love you. Love is a choice. Love is an action. Next question. My camera's dying because I've been talking for like 5 hours. Why are men trash? Because of the patriarchy. Because masculinity. That's another video. We'll have another video. Are you scared of getting old? I'm not actually. I think people who are scared of getting old are people who are attached to youth, people who believe that youth is the pinnacle of happiness, instead of understanding that life is a process of cycles and seasons, and being attached to one season causes you more pain than being open to what life brings you. Do you know what I mean? I think the reason that we are in pain and in conflict a lot of the times is not because of the situation itself, but because we expect a situation to be different from what it actually is. I'm also not one of those people that wants to live until I'm like 150. I'm not like longevity over quality. Not to mention the world is ending, so we'll all be out by 2050. 2050, the apocalypse is gonna swallow us up whole. So enjoy your life now, you know what I mean? What do I think the state of Africa would be if the white people had drowned at sea? Essentially, this question is asking, what would Africa be like without colonialism? But what I want to discuss is, what would black people be like without colonialism? Black people across the diaspora. So we can answer this question in 2 parts. On one hand, there's like the physical repercussions of colonialism on black bodies, and then there's the metaphysical repercussions. I want to mostly talk about the metaphysical and not so much the physical. And by physical, I just mean, you know, things like the colonialists. The white people came and divided us up into 53 states. Also, I'm speaking of Africa in a vacuum right now. I'm speaking about, hypothetically, what if Africa and black people had never had any contact with white people? So I want to answer the question that way and with that framework, as opposed to what would Africa look like if we were not colonized, but we still existed in a white world. Not so much interested in that question. I want to talk about what is blackness without contact with whiteness. But one of the fundamental things that I think colonialism did to us was completely destroy a sense of belief in ourselves. Colonialism came and it destroyed our cultures, it destroyed our political systems, it destroyed our religions, it destroyed every single one of our structures, and it was short enough to destroy all of our structures, but it wasn't long enough to replace the things that were taken from us. So now we're in, just like any abusive relationship, we're in a codependent relationship with whiteness, where we can't imagine what it's like to be self-sustaining for ourselves. And I think what blackness looks like without colonialism, without white supremacy, without contact with whiteness, is a belief in self. I have a friend who in high school, this friend of mine is Kenyan and I am South African, and she used to say to me all the time that the only reason that South Africa is as developed as it is, and the only reason that we are flourishing economically, is because unlike any other African country, we have white people. And this for me is the manifestation of self-hate and just a complete destruction of belief that black people can do anything for ourselves. Just the belief that like the only way and the only reason for us to flourish is to rely on white people is such a deeply ingrained colonial belief that was instilled in us by white supremacists who enslaved and colonized us. And even to this day, in big 2019, Africans still believe that the only reason South Africa flourishes economically, as far as scientifically, medically, is because of white people. And I just don't fuck with that. I don't believe in that. I think if anything, we'd be far better off without contact with white supremacy, because we'd be able to innovate, imagine, and create structures for us instead of creating structures in relation to them. So in short, what does blackness look like without whiteness, without contact with colonialism, without rooting our identity in pain and slavery? I think it looks like a sense of self and a sense of belief, whatever that means. I guess it's intentionally vague. And maybe that looks like Wakanda. Like maybe that's what that is what the premise of Black Panther was about. What is blackness without contact with white supremacy? I think it's ingenuity, I think it's innovation, but mostly I think all of that is rooted in self-confidence. And I think that's just something that we just don't have. It was taken away from us, and as the generations go down, we just don't have it. And as it stands, we rely on everyone but ourselves for solutions, because we have no sense of self, no sense of identity, and no sense of self-belief. Do I think it'll get better? That's another conversation. Just another conversation for another day. Basically, that's that on that. There were a billion questions here that I will attempt. Maybe we'll do a part 2. If you guys enjoyed this video, if it wasn't too rambly, we can do a part 2. Let me know in the comment section below if you'd like to do a part 2, or if there are any topics in particular that you enjoy listening to or talking about. Was this too rambly? I think it might have been, but maybe it wasn't. Let me know in the comment section below if there's anything in particular you'd like to hear me talk about. And let me know if there are any other questions that you have for me, and what is your take on all of these questions, on colonialism, on relationships, on toxicity, on all the things. Let me know what all of this is, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm sure I don't have to tell you again. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to follow me on my Instagram page, where we continue to have these juicy conversations in a safe space that is free of judgment and free of male tears, because I don't really have that many male followers. So it's a good place for conversation. See you in the next video. Bye.